Another episode of the Star Wars podcast. Today's episode is a review and a look at Timothy Zahn's Star Wars novel, Vision of the Future. Before I move on, I want to say that this will include spoilers, so if you haven't read the book yet, you may not want to listen. So let's go on. So this is the second book in the Hand of Thrawn Duology, which was made up of Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future. Vision of the Future is probably it is one of the longest Star Wars novels to date. The amount of pages obviously differs on the version you have. My version was 520 pages. Some people have a 694 page book, but nonetheless, it is the longest Star Wars novel there is. This was a really good book, but from some more background on it, Timothy Zahn originally meant the Hand of Thrawn Duology to be one book, but what happened was he was realizing like 30,000 words into the book that he was nowhere close to being finished with the story, and George Lucas just announced the fact that Phantom Menace was going to be held back another year. So Timothy Zahn calls up the editor and says, if you really need me to, I can split this into 2 books, just so that there'd be another Star Wars book the next year. And he wasn't bluffing, like he needed them to, and he didn't want them to say that to just write one book. He was lucky that they didn't question him at all about it. It was like, yeah, well, that sounds great. So, this was originally meant to be one book, this duology, known as the Hand of Thrawn, but it ended up being 2 books, with the second one being really long, and Timothy Zahn feels like he wrote a trilogy. And so far, he'd only written 2 Star Wars trilogies, nothing else really other than some short stories, so all he felt like he could write was Star Wars trilogies. Anyways, that's just some interesting facts. Now on to the book itself. I really like this book. It was a lot better than Spectre of the Past, as the action really starts to kind of get moving. Again, it's a lot more political compared to the Thrawn trilogy. This is a lot more political tension. You're really seeing how that all works out. There is a little bit of fighting when it comes to Mara Jade and Luke in the caves, but other than that, there really isn't much fighting, except for near the end with the battle to try to get the Kamas document. But nonetheless, I really like the story. Let me go over some of the points that were in the story that were kind of big. In the story, tensions in the Triumvirate, which was made up of Moff Disra, a clone of Major Tyrus, and Flim, all were trying to act as if they were Grand Admiral Thrawn coming back to the scene. And so, but each one, like the tensions between them gets a bit more strict as each one tries to gain their own little ground or take more control of the Triumvirate, especially Moff Disra and Major Tyrus. Furthermore, Leia ends up getting the message that was sent to Bill Blease in the first book about making a peace treaty from Admiral Pelion, and she ends up going over to Admiral Pelion to talk about it, ends up giving the message to Gaverson. It's just kind of something I wanted to note happened. Several different groups in this book are going after the Kamas document, as that is the main threat in the book. And this includes Bell Blease making a armada go get it from I forgot the name. Anyways, to go get it from Imperial Base, and Han Solo and Lando to go get it from Bastion. Card to go get it from his old friend Cardass, and eventually even Luke and Mara Jade to got it from the Hand of Thrawn, which they found on a planet in the Outer Rim system, which kind of creates some tensions between Plaque and Fel, who are threatening to go tell the Empire about it, but they end up harming that. And at the end of the book, this is the book where Luke proposes to Mara Jade to marry, and Mara Jade says yes. So that's really cool. Another fact is Zahn would not have written this duology if Lucasfilms did not allow him to allow Luke to marry Mara Jade. He simply refused. And eventually they capitulated to allow him to write the book with Mara Jade marrying Luke. So that's kind of cool. So my favorite part of the book is at the very end where Admiral Paleon says, "You're Flim." Because that, even though he had already knocked out parts of Major Tyrus's and Disra's scheme, that's when it falls apart. Because there's no question about it. When he says who the guy acting like Grand Admiral Thrawn's name actually is, there's no question, no doubt left that they have failed. It's amazing. It's my favorite part of the book. As I feel like at that moment, it's like things crumble down. Like, yes, they lost. Happy, their trickery's done. Because really, you get to like Admiral Paleon in these books. Admiral Paleon's probably my favorite Imperial character because he's actually one you like. Not that I don't like Darth Vader or any of the other guys, but you actually get to personally know him from reading the Thrawn Trilogy and the Hand of Thrawn Duology. And it's just kind of cool. And you see he's really down to earth, kind of understanding guy who wants the best for the Empire. And he's not going to let people trick him out of doing that. And he realizes, even though he doesn't like the New Republic, that the best thing for the Empire is to go to peace, no matter how much he dislikes them. So he's willing to take that step. I think that really gives him the moral ground compared to most Imperials that really just make people connect with him. So that's something. So I just loved when their plan fell apart. The other cool part was the moment when Luke obviously proposed to Mara Jade. And at the end of the book, the peace treaty is signed, and the issue of the Moss document has been resolved because Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker found one without meaning to. So that, I think overall this was a good Star Wars book, and I'm sure Timothy Zahn will not disappoint anyone with any new Star Wars books. I can't wait to see what his first canon Star Wars book is whenever he writes one. And the other thing I'd like to know is in the other books so far that I've done, I've said that he works it up to a point at the end of the books where there's a battle. Obviously, that's going to be something that happens in any Star Wars book. But the thing I want to say is that he does a really good job with it. He really kind of puts the details and make sure that normally that you have a sense of what's going to happen in the book, he really works up to that point. He never forgets that that's coming, even when he has kind of separate storylines going. The thing I didn't like about the Hand of Thrawn duology is the fact that it's hard to get into the second book without having read the first. In any trilogy, you probably should read the first book or any duology or anything before you go on to the second or third one. But I feel like in the Thrawn trilogy, you could have read the second or third books without having read the other ones. But it's kind of more necessary here, as a lot of the things going on are more just a continuation of the storylines. But nonetheless, it was a really good book. And I would probably put it at the third of my list of the 5 Timothy Zahn books I have read. In order, Heir to the Empire, as it's just a classic. Last Command, because I love the ending as well. Then Vision of the Future. Then Dark Force Rising. And then Spectre of the Past. All the books, however, are great. And I would like to say, go read these books. If you need anywhere to start in Star Wars books, start with the Thrawn trilogy. And then just decide where you want to go from there. But nonetheless, read Vision of the Future if you've read Spectre of the Past. It's well worth your while if you are bored with Spectre of the Past. Just recognize that this is a really long book. But other than that, it is fantastic, and you will love the ending. So, this is Indiana signing out. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.